Greetings and salutations, all you absolutely stunning individuals. Welcome back to another episode of League Online. My name is Eric Flying Han Solo. On today's epi, as we continue a little bit of preseason player rankings ahead of the 2025 season. Today, we're diving in to the LPL in its new look format, the first of the major regions to get underway, and obviously 16 different teams in the LPL, so we're narrowing these lists down to 10. Top 10 for each role. A lot of that is honestly because 16 to 11, well, it starts to get a little bit difficult to even grade because they're unknown commodities, or a lot of them are kind of lumped together at a similar level, being outside of that elite status. Not saying number 10 on a lot of these are elite status, even within the LPL, but it gets a lot trickier to navigate beyond that. So we're going 10 to 1, all 5 positions. We begin in that top lane, which honestly, like a lot of the other leagues, if you go across the entire globe, top lane is the role I'm the most hyped about in multiple, LTA, LEC, LPL here, LCK, once we eventually get there, obviously has a lot of drama as well. But obviously towards the bottom half, Flandre and Sheer, a couple of guys who used to be on that same squad. Now, neither of them hanging out on JDG heading into this year. Still feel like Sheer has the higher potential, even though Flandre had a pretty damn good showing to kick things off for the Demacia Cup champion. Anyone's legend. Cube has been a standout player for, multiple splits. The only problem for him, and to me, the reason he's not getting more praise, is he's usually on a not-so-great team. I don't want to say bottom feeder, but definitely not in that upper echelon. Maybe World Elite's going to be a little bit better this year, but probably he's still going to be cursed of sitting in that area. Shanji, similar, even though he had a bit of a down split last year. Again, kind of predicting what level they're going to be at the end of the split or in the middle of the split. Less so an actual preseason ranking, sticking with the theme that we've had for the rest of these lists. Breathes guy, who stood out at the World Championship on Weibo Gaming and actually became, second to Light, the second most consistent player on this Weibo lineup. We'll see if he can continue to grow and continue to be, honestly, a featured guy on this lineup for Weibo going forward, as he remains one of the commonplace, and now it's like 2+ years he's been on this squad. Ale gets the big level up or change, not even really a level up because he was on a good team last year, but he's on JDG. We thought it was going to be Sheer maybe being the starter for this one, but it ends up being Ale, and I'm really excited to see what he's capable of alongside what should be a pretty dang solid JDG lineup. He's going to have so much less pressure on him to be a de facto carry when you have guys like Pays and Scout on the lineup, and I think that's where you're going to see him continue to climb. It's like 5 years now almost. We've been talking about the potential, the mechanics that this guy has, and obviously we've seen glimpses of it time and time again, split in, split out. But he's in the perfect recipe on this JDG lineup for him to be able to both stand out and kind of take a back seat at times. Again, there not being as much pressure. I think we're really going to see this guy shine. Zika is criminally underrated, split in, split out on LNG, and now honestly, he's got the keys to the car with guys like Scout, guys like Gala no longer there. It's going to be a weaker LNG team for sure, but there's going to be more opportunity for Zika to be the guy who they're playing through, who the comps are built around, and I'm excited to see him step into that role. The top 3 is obviously stacked for top lanes, especially with the return of the Shy. Obviously, we've seen a bit of him at the Demacia Cup. We've seen some head-scratching moments, as we are all accustomed to seeing out of the Shy. Feel like he's gonna, find his form pretty quickly, but not enough to crack into that top 2, mainly because of the inconsistencies that I don't want to say plagued with, because the inconsistencies are what make the Shy the Shy. So we're gonna see him at times maybe pick up solo kills on Bin and 369 and look like he's the best top laner in the world. And we're also going to see him flash and die for no reason at level 1. So the bottom even out is, I think this is a higher end optimistic view putting him in that 3 spot, because Bin and 369 are completely untouchable to me as those top 2. I feel like the gap between Bin and 369 has stretched out a little bit more over the last year or so, and with BLG essentially running back the same lineup, no reason to think Bin is not going to be performing again at that high level. We'll see what 369 and Tien are like. Obviously got some history together from the top eSports, JDG. History with Kanavi, mixing up these MVP junglers. But obviously, that should be a level up and make 369 even more terrifying a prospect to match up against on top lane island. Guy we just alluded to, and I got the name completely wrong, but Kanavi on a new look squad when we look at these jungle rankings. And obviously, Kanavi's a guy who, let's go back to basically 2020, and he's always been in the conversation for best jungler in the LPL, and more often than not, he has been the best jungler in the LPL. Even now, being on a team not named JDG for the first time during that stretch, still feeling very good about this guy and how he's going to match up. Again, that built-in synergy with 369. I think he's going to help Cream take another level, but no reason for me to think Kanavi does not still play at an absolutely elite level going forward for top esports. And behind him, we got JJ in that 2 spot. Again, we are predicting where this is going to play out. JJ has faded into obscurity over the last couple of years, but we're accounting a lot of that to how bad EDG was in that post-World Championship run when they were losing guys like Scout and Viper. That team had no business contending, and shocker, they did not contend at all in the LPL. But now with a star-studded, even if they're slightly past their prime lineup, I feel like JJ's actually going to be the best performing member of this new IG lineup, and we already saw some signs of it during the Demacia Cup where he was popping off in a lot of the wins for IG. So very excited to see him with an actual capable laning team around him. The most polarizing guy on this list, and one of them in the LPL. The most polarized in the LPL is Tarzan, fresh off of that Demacia Cup championship where he was far and away the MVP for anyone's legend. This guy's on his 3rd team in 3 years now in the LPL, and basically the shy of the jungle, because he's either winning you the game or he's losing you the game, although the last little while it's been a lot more picking up MVPs for his squad. And I think they're, again, after winning this last tournament and having a good run last year, they're not really dark horses, but I think anyone's legend are a team that people shouldn't be surprised when they're in top 3 contender status throughout the majority of the LPL split, and a lot of that will be because of the level that Tarzan and the boys are playing at. But he'll be the guy leading that early game, as he always does. Qian at the 4 spot might seem a little bit low, but Weibo is definitely a step down from the laning prowess that he was getting out of guys like 369, Jackie Love on TES. He's going to have to work a whole lot harder to put up the same results and numbers that he was putting up with TES. So still expect him to be a world-class level jungler, at least during the regular season, but going to have a lot more heavy lifting to do on this Weibo lineup. Milky Way, if you're a fan of RNG, this is the only reason to watch any of the games, is going to be to see Milky Way. Unfortunately, he looks like he's going to be absolutely stuck at the very bottom depths of ELO hell for a lot of this year, but that's no reason to not see some big highlights. And we're going to get some highlights. Individually, yes, still think he's going to be better than Wei Jun, Wei, which sounds insane, but they have pretty stacked lineups and will also not be the featured guys on their squads. We saw Wei be that more supportive jungler that fit the chaos of BLG. He was the steady force that they needed, and actually thought he was better than Jun when he was starting, even though Jun got a lot of the starts at that World Championship. Not to say he won't fit in well for JDG, and they're not both great junglers in their own right, but individually, I'm still riding high on that Milky Way train, even though he might be on an absolute abysmal RNG lineup. Mid lane action, which is actually maybe the weakest role in the LPL, especially once you start getting out of that top half, the top 5 in the LPL. It drops off real quickly, but, guys that are coming over from the LCK, guys that are slowly building up like Nene, Haichao, who have had good moments, but nothing where you're thinking they could be a contending mid laner or an all-pro level mid laner. You get up to Care, he had some great moments on FPX, 100% hands down. That was with Milky Way. It's going to be a different FPX lineup. They've got a lot of youth around them. The guy like Sheer that we mentioned earlier for top laners, but taking that next step, it gets difficult after Care. That really feels like the almost gatekeeper status of mid laners, because immediately you're getting to a guy like Xiaohu who has had some down moments, more so than some of these older mid laners, the old guard, guys like Rookie. We've still seen elite levels out of him. We've seen few and far between of those moments for a guy like Zhao, who even when we've seen him across different metas, you thought the ADC meta, he would thrive because we're used to seeing him. He was piloting that in the top lane. He was excelling on it in the mid lane, but even though he leveled up at Worlds, the LPL performances, you still got to give the edge to Rookie, especially now that much like a guy like Ale will have to do less of the heavy lifting on JDG, Rookie's going to have to do less of that heavy lifting with the Shy being reunited, with a star juggler in JJ, and of course with the consistent bot lane of Gala and Mako. Rookie can kind of breathe a sigh of relief that he actually has a team around him. The two younger guys here in the 3-4 spot, Cream and Shanks. I might even take Shanks in that top 3 because this guy has been growing to ascending levels, and again, paired up now with Tarzan for this year, I think there's a good chance we're talking about him at an all-pro level alongside somebody like Cream, who also is going to get a level up with Kanavi. So both of those guys getting star-level junglers paired alongside them, I think you're going to see the trajectory of their development and growth skyrocket. For guys who were already on the upward trend, we saw Cream perform well internationally last year, and we've seen Shanks, honestly, dominate at times throughout this Demacia Cup. And I know, again, I've referenced it a couple times. You got to take these with a grain of salt. It's rare that the champions from the Demacia Cup actually come and make noise or are legit contenders for the actual LPL title. But anyone's legend has definitely got the stuff to be contending. But the problem for both of these young guys is top 2 seems pretty locked in stone. I know Scout had some moments in the LPL summer, but he turned it on for the World Championship, was one of the main reasons why LNG looked good at Worlds, obviously alongside his buddy Tarzan, but there's no reason to count this guy out. If you're talking about this trio of old guard and Rookie, Xiaohu, and Scout, he is definitely the cream of the crop of those 3 and has reached the most consistently high level over last year and the last couple of years, really. But let's not beat around the bush. It's a big gap after Night for any of these mid laners. Even the peak levels we were getting out of Scout last year did not come close to touching what we were getting out of Night, and he continues to make his case for best mid laner of all time coming out of the LPL, despite playing several less years than guys like Rookie and Xiaohu, who are definitely in that conversation. But right now it's Knight's world, and we're just living in it as it's what now? 5 LPL titles in a row that this guy's rocking, and obviously BLG and the boys are going to be the perennial favorites heading into yet another LPL split where Knight might pick up another MVP, might pick up another trophy, but either way, we are most excited to see him piloting in that mid lane. We roll on to the bot lane, and we're starting to notice a theme. This is the 3rd player that is number 1 on their respective positions from BLG. Yes, you got to throw Elk in that top dog AD carry spot. Ruler is out, the main competition for him. Not to say this isn't a pretty stacked position, especially when you're looking at the top 6 or 7 for AD carries heading into the LPL. But no question, Elk comes in as the top dog for that one heading into this year. Well-deserved. in a team with Bin and Knight, the amount of times we're still talking about and highlighting Elk's performance on the Rift is a true testament to the mechanical prowess and god status that this guy can reach at any given moment, and seems to only play better the more important matches. Case in point, we saw at Worlds. Behind him, you got to throw in Gala, who quietly had a great year on LNG, but it just felt like there were other guys we were talking about more. But with guys like the Shy rookie, JJ, the craziness that we're going to get out of IG, you better believe that Gala is going to be the steadying force and hand in that bot lane, and I expect a few more pentakills to be racked up on his side of things with the new look squad on LNG. Mako, the best support he'll have had, probably going back to when he was with Ming on RNG, which I know, like peak Ming, 2021, 2022 at the very least. Third spot, so excited to see Pays over in the LPL. This guy has been criminally disrespected and underestimated because he's been so attached to Ruler throughout his career. But Pays, the guy won an MSI. All he did was win LCK title after LCK title in his first 2 years. I'm excited at the opportunity for him to prove himself in the terrifying waters that are LPL AD carries who, you can talk about LCK AD carries being at a higher level, but the aggression and absolute psychotic play style that you get out of LPL ADCs is just a little bit different, and that's why we're even putting him a spot ahead of a guy like Jackie Love, who sometimes goes too far into the red on that aggression scale. But the mechanics that we've seen out of Pays and the absolute ice in his veins in some of these massive team fights where he was taking over games for Gen G, much like Elk on a team with Canyon and Chovy. So many times we were talking about the young phenom that is Pays, and it's a pretty veteran-ish, very professional term for JDG that he's going to be on. And I think this is going to be an opportunity for Missing to also prove himself that he is still a top tier support, but both of them looking to prove that they have been criminally underrated, being on these superstar lineups. Not many people were talking about Missing on the JDG super team, and people were talking about Pays less than they should have been on that Gen G lineup. Jackie Love, Light, and Hope. Again, if you're looking specifically at the Demacia Cup, it seems insane to have Hope behind Light because he had an incredible run for Anyone's Legend, and Light also kind of had a down year, or a down tournament, but I'm expecting to bounce back out of him, especially with the new support coming in for him. But Hope and his buddy KL in the bot lane, they're pretty dang good, and This is a conservative spot for Hope. I feel like he could maybe climb as high as that 4th spot. That seems crazy to think about him ahead of Jackie Love. But Light and Hope are definitely at a similar level. And as you get to the bottom 4 on this list, Photic Leaf, 1XN, and Wacko coming over, who we're accustomed to seeing over in the PCS. But it's definitely a clear gap. After them, you can talk about the top 6 being at least comparable. Again, Hope, Light, Jackie Love, in similar conversations at the very least. Elk, Gala, and Pays. I think Elk is still a step up from everyone else, but they're comparable levels for this top 6 before a seriously substantial drop-off in the bottom half of those 80 carries. When we get to their supports, the pals in the bot lane, it's quite a combination of imports when you have guys like Moham and Kyle, who we're going to get to. You've got young players in Vampire, who now is freed from the shackles of EDG. I think we're really going to see this guy shine. You've got role swaps in Wink, who, if you haven't been following, has actually had a pretty damn good role swap over from AD carry. He has thrived in that support role, can play a lot more than just Blitzcrank. Crisp is obviously a enigma, an anomaly. Is he going to be absolutely incredible on top esports, or is he going to be inting? I think it's going to be, he's going to perform better on this type of a team. Again, this is the theme on this list. He's going to have to do a little bit less with a guy like Kanavi than he was having to do on Weibo, where he was in charge so much of controlling things, getting caught out warding time and time again, which is a telltale sign of a support trying to do a little bit too much. But Kyle and Hope are going to be one of the more exciting surprise bot lanes. Kael's actually even more of a standout than Hope, if you're asking me. He's a guy who, at times on Live Sandbox, we were excited about, and he's really delivered since he came over to the LPL. But still believing in missing in that top 3 zone, even though he had a down year on JDG. People were saying maybe he should be changed and try and keep the other guys. Obviously, probably did not have the money for that, did JDG, but missing the only guy returning from last year. So hopefully we get a bounce back from him, because during the 2-3 years almost before that, we were talking about him as a top 3 support in the LPL for pretty much a 2-year stretch. Still believe he can absolutely get back to that level, especially with a young guy in Pays, both of them looking to prove themselves. But it's an easy top 2, Mako and On. It's unbelievable that heading into the last year on EDG and even the start of his tenure with Top Esports, we were talking about, is Mako washed? Is it over for the LPL GOAT support? And then he proceeds to have one of his best years ever alongside Jackie Love, and because of that, there's no reason to think he's going to slow down in this absolutely veteran stacked lineup for Invictus Gaming. We know Mako is one of the best shot callers in the LPL, and that has been an Achilles heel for guys like the Shy and Rookie, even going back to their World Championship level IG. Ain't nobody saying the shot calling and macro was top notch out of that IG lineup. So always the intangibles and communications that Mako bring alongside his laning prowess that I'm sure we're going to see alongside Gala. And then On, even though he turns the switch off a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, some of the time for BLG, still returning with his pal Elk in the bot lane, expecting them to be one of, if not the premier bot lane in the LPL yet again. So top 3, top 4 of the LPL support's looking real good heading into this lineup. I think there's going to be some real standout bot lanes, and we're going to get some nasty little 2v2s across the board. But obviously, aside from I think Wei was outside of the top 5, everyone on BLG is like top 2 at worst, and most of them are number 1. So yes, there are going to be massive favorites. IG remained the team to watch to see what level they're at, and Anyone's Legend remains the team to probably surprise and shatter everyone's expectations, even though their expectations are growing over the last little while as those defending Demacia Cup champions, the only team with a trophy on the table already. But that is it today for League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you wonderful people for hanging out and supporting us as always, and we'll catch you on that flippity flip.